Mr. Marks,
Yes, sir.
where have you been?
Say it again.
Okay,
You
Can't hear you.
you can hear us.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us, John?
I can hear you.
Okay. All right, we're gonna get going. It's 6:40 PM. And we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance, there's a flag in the room, so stand and do that.
You want somebody to say the Pledge of Allegiance?
I'll do it here, John.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of
of the United States of America,
American. And
and
to
to
the
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so in the absence of a supervisor, the clerk will call the roll, so Supervisor Durant is excused and absent and excused. Trustee LaRue,
Here.
trustee Marks,
Present.
trustee Winslow,
Present.
trustee Everson,
here.
treasurer Johnson,
Here.
and clerk Rattari is here. Staff present is manager Kangas, our legal counsel Roger Zappa is here. Our superintendent of public works Lenny Bodinas is here. Mike Springer, I saw was here. He was here, he might be gone now. And our township advisory council member from the library, Tom Bronkin is here. So at this point,
Clerk, if somebody's attending remotely, they need to state where they're attending from.
okay, trustee Marks, you're in Marquette Township, right?
Right.
Okay. So at this point, the board will have to choose a chair of the meeting.
I'll make a motion that we have our clerk, Randy Rattari, chair of the meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, so a motion, the clerk chairs the meeting, seconded, all in favor,
Aye.
Aye.
and then trustee Marks,
Yes.
okay. Motion carries, so the clerk is the chair of the meeting. Question for Roger, when we have members of the board remote, we should probably still do a roll call vote, so it's clear, correct?
There's never any harm in doing a roll call vote. When someone is remote, at least the remote people should be done by roll call.
Okay, very good. Okay, so I will now open it up for public comment. Any members of the public? I don't have any emails from the public. Any members Zoom would like to address the board? And I see David Allen.
Yeah, and I have a question for you. Supervisor Durant had asked me to give a presentation to you tonight about redistricting, which I'm happy to do. If that is no longer possible because she's not here, she was going to be a part of a privileged comment. I'm happy to do it. In a normal comment, I'll just be much more brief and not use my PowerPoint. So whatever you would prefer.
We do have you on the agenda, David, so if you
Okay.
like, we do have you there and it's being recorded, so anyone can watch it after.
Okay,
So-
great. Thank you.
So we'll do that, okay?
Yes.
Okay, so any other members would like to address the board? Okay, if not, we're moving forward. No board member comment. Consent agenda. Tonight's consent agenda consists of approval of the regular meeting minutes of March 16th, 2021. Bills payable for the amount of $138,617.29. Committee and other reports, utility billing calendar for April 2021. And correspondence not requiring board action, charter communication regarding channel lineup. So I need a motion and a second to approve the
Approve
consent
the
agenda.
consent agenda, I move.
Support.
Question.
Yeah, hold on. So I have a motion and a second. Any comments? And Ernie has a question.
reading the minutes on the last motion. Concur with recommendation personnel committee to authorize township manager to request a transfer of the position from the ASME bargaining to the professional. Should we not indicate which position we're talking about?
That's a good idea. That it is the accountant assistant clerk position.
I understand
Yes,
that, but as far as
yes.
the minutes are concerned,
Yeah, I can insert that. If that's
Okay.
the only correction that needs to be done,
Okay.
I can insert that. So is that okay for the motion maker and? the
Yes.
second?
It is.
Okay, so the consent agenda will be approved as amended then, and roll call vote is trustee Marks,
Yes.
trustee Everson,
Yes.
trustee LaRue,
yes,
trustee Winslow.
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson.
yes,
Clerk Rattari is yes. So that motion carries 6-0 and 1 absent. So now we need approval for the regular agenda, and I do have one thing I am gonna remove for the agenda is 9B3C, which is job description revamp with attorney. That will be removed because me and the attorney had a conversation and that doesn't need to be on there any longer.
Okay.
So,
Move to approve the agenda as amended.
support,
okay, so just give me a minute because I'm chairing the meeting and doing minutes, so it's kind of double duty here, so I might be a little bit slow, but that's fine. So approval of the agenda as amended, trustee Marks,
Yes.
treasurer Johnson.
yes,
Trustee LaRue,
yes,
trustee Winslow,
Yes.
trustee Everson.
Yes.
And clerk Rattari is yes. So we have an agenda. So we are now at board education privilege comment, and David Allen will present a PowerPoint on redistricting. And let me allow you to share your screen here, David.
Okay. While you're doing that, let me just say a couple of words before I get started with the PowerPoint. First of all, I'm here tonight as part of the League of Women Voters of Marquette County. League of Women Voters has been very active with redistricting this year. And so I've been participating in a statewide committee from the League of Women Voters that's been observing all of the meetings of the new independent commission that the state has to do redistricting. And so what we're going to try to do tonight is run through some of what's happening there. There are three things that I want to just mention before I get into the PowerPoint. One, under the United States Constitution, every 10 years, the United States Census does a count of everybody in the United States, basically to figure out how many congressional districts should be in each state. That also triggers the drawing of district lines for all the congressional districts and all the state legislature districts. So in our state, that's the Michigan Senate and Michigan House. And each state does that under their own state laws, which brings me to the second point. Michigan has a brand new way of drawing these lines. For the first time, they're going to use this independent commission under changes to the Michigan Constitution, which happened in 2018, instead of the state legislature doing it. So we have a brand new process this year for how that's going to be done. And the third thing is that I want to mention before we get into the PowerPoint is there is this brief opportunity of a few months where everyone in the state can talk directly to the commission about what their hopes and dreams are for these lines. And so there will actually be a public hearing in Marquette, in the city of Marquette at NMU on May 18th from 5 to 9 p.m., where the entire commission will be here to hear from local jurisdictions such as yourself, communities of interest, which I'll describe in a little bit, and any citizen who wishes to give them information about how they think those lines should be drawn. So we have this limited opportunity to address them. And that's really why the League of Women Voters is so interested in getting the word out. I'll now try to share my screen. Let's see here. I think this will
Should
work.
be able to now, Dave. You should. be
Great.
able.
All right. Now we'll play there. Okay. Can you see the screen now?
Yeah.
Oh,
Good, yeah.
hold on. Let me do it again here. It's bouncing around. Hold on. One more time. Okay, make sure it's stable. Okay, good. So redistricting in Michigan. There are two terms I'm going to refer to several times tonight. One is the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission, MICRC. That's this new group that has been formed by the Michigan Constitution to actually draw the lines. They have the sole authority to draw these district lines for Michigan. I'm also going to be talking a lot about communities of interest, which are groups who live in Michigan that have some common interest that has some legislative import. And this is one of the top criteria that the MICRC is required under the Constitution to use when drawing the lines. The basic idea of this new way of doing things is that citizens, the MICRC, will draw the lines instead of the politicians, the state legislature. So it's a brand new way of doing things in Michigan. So as I mentioned, redistricting is this thing that happens every 10 years under the United States Constitution, which is driven by the census count to look at the distribution of people around the country. And as you probably all know, Michigan for the last 5 decades has been losing a seat per decade because places like Texas and California are picking them up. That's likely to happen again this year. States are then tasked with drawing their own congressional district lines and their own state legislature lines. So in our case, House and Senate districts. And each state has their own set of laws for how they do that. So how are the lines actually drawn? First of all, there are a bunch of federal laws which have the ultimate jurisdiction in it. This is under the United States Constitution, which requires that every 10 years we do the redistricting. The Constitution requires, this is the United States Constitution requires that there be an equal number of persons in each district. And Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which is a federal law, requires that no state can deny minority voters an equal opportunity to participate to elect representatives of their choice. I'll also mention there is also a Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, which also used to apply, but that was just struck down by the Supreme Court in the last year and a half or so. I'll also mention, I won't get into this tonight, but the 14th Amendment assures equal protection. This is important. A lot of litigation across the United States about redistricting comes under this amendment. We won't get into that tonight, but that's just for your information. Okay, so what is the problem which led Michigan and some other states to change how they do this redistricting? The problem is that politicians of any party manipulate the drawing to keep themselves and their party in power. So incumbents have a vested interest in drawing the line to protect their own district, and parties have a vested interest in keeping themselves in power. This is true for Republicans. This is true for Democrats. This is true for any party which gets in power. This has happened for many, many years. In fact, it goes all the way back to the 18th century in Massachusetts, where a guy named Gary, his last name was Gary, drew a district that looked like a salamander. It was picked up by the press and they put this in there. And so they called it the Salamander District, the Gerrymandered District. Over time, it's been called gerrymandering instead of gerrymandering. Here's what it's all about. Here's a stylized picture of what happens when someone tries to gerrymander. So if you look on the square on the left, this square is an idealized population. So it's a group of people who live in this area, this box. And 60% of the people vote green and 40% vote purple. Now, if you're going to draw 5 districts for this area, for this country, or for this state that is represented by the box, there's a lot of ways you could do it. The box that is second from the left shows a way that you could draw it where each district is compact and fairly identical and fair. It turns out with drawing these vertical lines, you end up getting 3 districts that are green and 2 districts that are purple. So they would elect 3 greens and 2 purples. The next box to the right shows that if you draw the same kind of line, only horizontal, you still get compact, equal districts, but they're no longer fair because in this case, all 5 districts will elect somebody green. So purples get no representation at all. Then the box on the right shows that if you don't worry too much about the lines looking too similar and compact, you can actually skew the lines so that you can turn it so that purple ends up winning 60% and green's only 40%. This is just an illustration to show that you can draw lines in a way that favors whichever side you hope for. Now, as I mentioned, this has been going on for a long time. What's brought it to the fore in recent decades is that people have become much, much more sophisticated in how they do this. We now have many sources of data, not only the census, but many other kinds of demographic data which can be used. And there are now very sophisticated computer programs which can do this kind of line drawing in a very sophisticated way so that incumbents and incumbent parties have even more advantage than they used to. This has caused a backlash in places like Michigan and elsewhere, California, Arizona, some other places, to change how these lines are drawn. Here's just another illustration of how you can change the lines to favor one color versus the other. And you can imagine you can use the colors to represent parties of any sort. Now the current lines in Michigan look like this. This first map is the US Congressional Districts. And for us in the UP, you can see that because we have such a low population and such a large geographic area, that probably there aren't going to be any lines drawn within the Upper Peninsula, and certainly not in Marquette County, that are going to affect the Michigan Congressional District. It's still going to be the whole UP and a bunch of the Lower Peninsula to get enough population for it to be a congressional district. That southern line can affect, could be gerrymandered, but really gerrymandering for the congressional districts is all going to happen down there in the lower right, the southeast Michigan and Detroit, where there are so many districts. Here's an example of one of those districts in Detroit. This is the very famous 14th Congressional District, at least famous among people who study gerrymandering. This shows how after the last census, the legislature drew a district which serpentines through parts of Detroit along the Detroit River, and then straight west, and then sort of up into the suburbs and over to Farmington Hills, but carve out a little bit of Farmington Hills to put it in the other district, and then on up into Pontiac. This is an unusual looking district. This is a district which was almost certainly drawn to favor an incumbent or a party. Moving to the Senate, you can see that once again, in the Upper Peninsula, we don't have quite enough population to fill 2 Senate districts, Michigan Senate districts. Again, Marquette County is unlikely to have a lot of say or play in the Senate. Right now, that line is drawn at the eastern boundary of Schoolcraft and Alger County. That may move, but it'll probably look pretty similar to this afterwards. And once again, you can see in Southeast Michigan and also maybe Grand Rapids area that there will be many more opportunities for gerrymandering. Moving to the state house, now we start to see that, okay, there are some lines now that are carving up the Upper Peninsula a little bit more. And interestingly, you'll note that the only county in the Upper Peninsula which has a line drawn through it for any of the 3 districts is Marquette County. And this is Powell Township and Ishpeming Township are part of the 110th House District to the west. The rest of Marquette County is part of the 109th, which goes more to the east. So this is a line which I suspect that many local jurisdictions in Marquette County may actually have something that they want to say to the commission, which will be here on May 18th. People may like to have the county carved, or they may not. Whatever they think, their chance to tell the full commission is coming soon. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this commission, this MICRC, Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission. This occurred in 2018 with Proposition 2, which amended the Michigan Constitution. It was done by a group called Voters Not Politicians, with the idea that voters, not politicians, should draw the election district lines. There's a new 13-member MICRC, which has been meeting starting in September of last year and will continue through the rest of this year. Because of my involvement with the League of Women Voters, I actually watched nearly every one of their meetings. They're actually fascinating if you don't mind watching governmental bodies. It actually is a pretty interesting one. So the Michigan Constitution now requires two different, very important fundamental concepts, which are a huge change over the past. First, transparency. This new commission operates completely in the sunshine. All of their meetings are live streamed. They will continue to be live streamed even once they start to meet in person. Everything that they do follows the Open Meetings Act. Everything is required to be done on the record. They are prohibited by law to have any conversations with each other, with their staff, or with the public unless they have a quorum, and at least having to do with redistricting, and that quorum is made public. So this is completely different than all past redistricting, where it was always done behind closed doors by whichever party was in power, and nobody knew what was going to happen until the lines were drawn. So that's a very important new concept that is already operating. Secondly, the MICRC is required to include 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, and 5 people who don't identify with either of those parties. The idea here is that we don't want anybody, whether they're in power or not, to be able to shave the dice, if you will. And there's also a specific constitutional requirement that the lines cannot favor or disfavor any incumbent or political party or former politician. So here's what the commission looks like. As I mentioned, 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, 5 independents, which could mean either that they don't affiliate with any party or they affiliate with a party other than Republican or Democrat. The only requirements to be on this board are that you are registered to vote in Michigan and that you submit an application. Although I'll also mention there are a few very specific disqualifications if you are an elected official of one of the parties, a lobbyist for one of the parties, or related to one of those 2 groups. But for the most part, if you can register to vote and submit an application, you can be on this board. This was also done completely in the open. Secretary of State sent 10,000 random mailings all around the state, and plus they accepted applications from anybody who wanted to apply. And then they took from both of those pools, the pool of the mailings and the pool of people who just did it on their own, either through mail or online. And from those 2 pools, picked 60 Republicans, 60 Democrats, and 80 independents. And that created a pool of 200. And those 200 then were looked at by both parties, and the leaders of both parties in the legislature, the Michigan legislature, could strike any 20 of them, 10 each, basically, some for the House, some for the Senate. Once those were stricken to get out anybody that they thought weren't really legitimate for any reason, that left a group that would then be drawn through computer random selection to get to 13. And that was a weighted program that made sure people came from different parts of the state, that had different ethnic backgrounds, that had different age groups, and that ended up with the 4, 4, and 5 political affiliations. This whole process that we're describing is all about trying to approve a set of new maps for the three kinds of maps: congressional districts, Michigan Senate, Michigan House. Before the commission votes, they have to test all the maps against those a whole set of criteria, which I'm going to describe in a moment. And the final plan must be adopted by a majority vote. Plus, that majority must include at least 2 Democrats, at least 2 Republicans, and at least 2 independents. There is, under the Constitution, a whole set of what if provisions. If they're unable to get a majority that includes 2, 2, and 2, then there's a whole set of things which happen, the last of which is all of the plans that are being considered are put into a pool, and the Secretary of State picks one by random. And that's really basically to motivate this board, this commission, to not end up in a stalemate, because they don't want to have to just have a random one. So at any rate, it looks like it'll probably work. Hopefully we'll end up with a positive vote. The criterion rules that the commission must follow under the commission are a set of just a handful, but they are actually done in priority order. The Constitution actually says what the priority order of the criteria are. The first 2 are already required by federal law. And so there's nothing new here, but those remain the top two criteria. Number one, equal population in each district, and that you follow the Voting Rights Act, which that section 2, remember I mentioned earlier, and that they be geographically contiguous. You can't have two islands. You can't have, Marquette County put with Detroit somehow. Those are already required under federal law. Those continue to be the highest priorities for this commission. The highest priority criteria that is new is that the new district lines have to reflect the diverse populations, communities of interest. Communities of interest, remember, is that other term that I mentioned, which is any group that shares cultural, historic, or economic traits, which might be influenced by either federal or state legislation. Underneath those first three criteria, you have another set of 4. No packing or cracking. Packing and cracking is basically, if you remember those stylized figures at the beginning, changing the lines, splitting off groups, putting groups all in one place in order to create some sort of advantage for somebody. You're not allowed to do that, but that's lower than communities of interest. You cannot favor or disfavor any incumbent or candidate. Then next under that is you look at the current county, city, and township boundaries. And then finally, you try as best you can, given the other criteria, to make the districts reasonably compact, so they're not spread out, serpentining through the region. The public participation, which I've already alluded to, the Constitution requires 10 public hearings by the commission before the lines are drawn and 5 public hearings after the maps are drawn. The commission has already voted to have 16 meetings before the maps are drawn and 8 afterwards. One of the 16 will be in Marquette, and one of the 8 will also be in Marquette. The 16, the one in Marquette, is on May 18th from 5 till 9 p.m., although they won't stop at 9 p.m. if there are public comments still coming in. In addition to having the public hearings, after the plan is adopted, the commission must publicize the plan and explain how they made the decisions to draw the lines the way they did. Now, in addition to the 16 public hearings before and 8 after, the commission is also accepting public comments even now on what the public thinks about, any of their deliberations, including any communities of interest that people may want to talk about or draw. Literally, draw a line on a physical map around your community of interest and mail it in with why you think it's important. They'll look at that already. But in addition to that, they're in the next few weeks, we'll be putting online a portal where you can actually go from free online mapping software to draw either communities of interest or even full maps of these different kinds of districts if you wish. The software allows that, to submit maps and anything you want to say about those maps to the commission at any time. And then at these public hearings, they'll also have a portal where you can submit your written testimony or submit maps, software maps are hard, or speak at the microphone for as long as it takes to hear from everybody. As I mentioned earlier, the commission, staff, their attorneys, their consultants are not allowed to discuss any redistricting matters except when it's during a public meeting with a quorum. So the League of Women Voters, as I mentioned, is monitoring all of this quite closely. We have a team of 12 people that is monitoring all of the meetings of the commission. We also testify at those meetings regularly. We've already testified about the staff they've hired, et cetera. But in addition to that, we are coordinating a group of about 100 people in the League of Women Voters throughout the state who are focused on these communities of interest. And the idea is, we want to make sure that any community of interest knows that this is happening, knows that they have an opportunity to say something about their own community and why they think a line either should or shouldn't be drawn through their community. And we're particularly focused on those communities of interest that might not already be well-staffed, very savvy about how to lobby governmental bodies. We're just trying to make sure we get the word out. And so I'm very happy that you've invited me tonight to talk about all of this. Communities of interest, I'll just say a little bit about this. I'm getting near the end now. What are they? Why do they matter?
It's any population that shares cultural characteristics, historical characteristics, or economic interests. Although there are other states who use communities of interest, Arizona, California, some others, each state has to define what a community of interest means. And even more important, you can imagine how hard it might be, say, particularly in a place like Detroit, where there may be hundreds, maybe thousands of communities of interest. And it is probably impossible to do what each community of interest hopes. And so this commission will have to decide not only how to define a community of interest, but how to prioritize them and how to weigh their different interests. Examples of communities of interest, it could be, various ethnic groups like Hispanic, Latino, it could be, Native Americans, Finns, whatever you might think. It could be adjacent school districts with similar issues to each other. It could be agriculture groups, dairy orchard. It could be mining groups. It could be related to geography, groups that are on the shoreline. Maybe it makes sense that Marquette County be split between those communities that are oriented towards the Great Lakes and those that are oriented towards the interior. As I mentioned, Native American tribes. Could even be things like neighborhood associations, although probably in Marquette County that won't be a big issue, but maybe in Detroit it would be, because a neighborhood might have enough to fill a whole district. Communities of interest matter because they're one of the fundamental building blocks for creating these legislative districts. You can imagine having a whole bunch of communities with lines drawn around them and trying to create districts that respect those and get you to the population that is needed, while also meeting the requirements of the Voting Rights Act, et cetera, et cetera. So how can people get involved? I think the most important way is for any group which has something that they want to say to the entire commission, they should take advantage of these public hearings. And certainly here in Marquette County, the fact that we're going to have one of the public hearings right here in Marquette means that I think we have an opportunity for jurisdictions or communities of interest to talk to the full commission, to say what you want to say, to prepare a written testimony, to draw maps, whatever. The public hearing schedule for the whole state is at redistrictingmichigan.org, including details. I think this one will be at NMU. I think at where they're doing the vaccinations right now. So that concludes the state redistricting. I just wanted to, this will be very quick. I just want to say a little bit. There's an additional redistricting separate from the state redistricting. That's county redistricting, which is also going to occur, which is also driven by the census. And this is all stipulated under state law. So it depends on how big your county is. Our county is 67,000 people, and that means that under state law, you can have anywhere from 5 to 21 commissioners. We have 6. Those 6 are, I'm going to just describe them quickly. The first district is Powell Township, Marquette Township, only precinct 1 though, and the city of Marquette, precinct 6 and 7. Then the second county district is a very big one with a bunch of townships: Negaunee, Ishpeming, Champion, Michigamme, Republic, Humboldt, and Ely. The third, once again, combines Marquette Township, precinct 2, with the city of Marquette, precinct 1, 3, 4, and 5. The fourth county district is Ishpeming and Negaunee cities. Then the fifth is another large one with a bunch of townships that you can see there. And the sixth one is San Chocolate Township, along with the city of Marquette, precinct 2. So what happens is that same census data that comes out from the US Census triggers redistricting by counties and other jurisdictions. So the county commission itself has 30 days from the census data to divide the county. If they fail to do it, then the county clerk convenes an apportionment commission, which comprises the county clerk, county treasurer, prosecuting attorney, and the chairs of the 2 major parties in the county. One thing I should mention here that applies both to the county and the state is that mostly because of COVID-19, the US Census is very, very late this year. So usually the data come out in mid-March, so we would already have these data. This year, the data will not come out until mid to late September, which has already created a crisis that creates a crisis for the state commission. They have a constitutional requirement to be done by a certain date that's no longer possible. They're in the process right now of petitioning the Michigan Supreme Court to change those dates in a way that doesn't affect the midterm elections in 2022. But that will also affect, of course, our county commission. They'll have to wait as well, and they'll have this 30 days. The county commission or that apportionment commission has to follow these rules. 1 commissioner per district, nearly equal population in each district, must be contiguous, again, no islands. They must be compact and nearly square, geography allowing. And then avoid combining townships with cities except to meet the population requirement. So you saw that we have some combined ones. That was probably to meet those equal population requirements. Then avoid splitting townships, cities, or precincts except again to meet the population requirement. Don't include any residents in state institutions like prisons who are not eligible to vote, and avoid partisan advantage. And then lastly, any registered voter in Marquette County can petition the Court of Appeals, Michigan Court of Appeals, for review if they don't like those lines, and that can be appealed to the Michigan Supreme Court. This is my last slide. This is just some propaganda from the League of Women Voters about how to contact us and how to join. And with that, I will conclude, and I'm happy to take any questions if you have any, and I will try to stop sharing my screen here. There we go.
Hey, thank you, David. I guess if the board has any questions at this time.
Lots of information. Oh,
Well, I think we're good, David.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the time to speak to you, and I appreciate all that you do.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye.
Hold on, Dave.
No, I have a question for us. Can
Okay.
we post his presentation on our website?
Actually, it'll be part of the meeting. So if anyone wants to see it, they can go to the meeting recording and it'll be there, so. But we could actually
How can
put
we
some,
make it easier for people, Andy?
well, we could probably email them and get it and maybe put it on the website.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that might be a good idea.
okay.
People might be concerned about why Marquette Township is split.
Yeah, and why we have 6 county commissioners instead of the 7 we used to have.
Yeah,
The 6 and 6 doesn't break ties very good, so.
not at all.
Okay, so we will move on to community linkage. Does anyone have anything that you're hearing from the public or anything external? Linda?
So Lynn thought that this would be a good place to let the community know that on April 14th, there will be a public hearing for the applicants to do a marijuana facility in Marquette Township. So again, it will be April 14th at 7 p.m. here online.
You guys are still doing Zoom or?
Well, that certainly will be Zoom
Okay.
for our customers, right?
For the public.
Yeah, we're not letting, our public customers aren't coming in.
So the public hearing will be online.
So April 14th again. Any
7
questions?
o'clock.
Any questions?
Okay, thank you for that information. We'll have that public hearing information probably be posted towards the end of this week. For that'll be part of the planning commission information, so. Okay, so moving on.
Randy, I had one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
People ask questions on Ontario. I know if Laney's on there, if you could explain that, what's going on there?
Okay, I did see Lenny is on, yeah, he is online, he's on mute right now, but. Okay,
Can you hear me?
yep, we can.
What was your question, Pete?
People are asking what's going on in Ontario. Like, we know what the sewer, and, I mean,
That's gonna be. I'm sorry. That's gonna be part of that phase 2 project, county project, where they're gonna be redoing Ontario up to center, I believe.
And what's this gonna consist of? And how long is it gonna take?
I'm not really sure how long it's gonna take. I think they're basically what they're gonna be doing is reconstructing the road, They're gonna be redoing the storm sewer in that area. It's gonna be kind of like that first phase that they did, I believe, from Warner to Allen.
And it will extend the bike path down to this north end of this phase project limits.
Okay, all set, Pete?
So-
That's it. No, at least they'll hear it.
Yeah, Linda?
So tell me, how far will the bike path go?
To Center Street.
Oh, just to center, okay.
When phase 3 is done, it will go all the way to Rice Street,
Okay.
assuming that phase 3 can be done under the current funding methods, which is using the small urban grant, which I think the road commission gets their piece of that every second or third year. So it'll be 2 to 3 years from now, the final phase should be able to get done.
Okay, any other questions or any other comments for community linkage? Okay, so we'll move on to number 8, assurance of organizational performance. And we have a couple, or 3 committee appointments here. And the first is going to be Bill Tabor. And Bill, you're on. I see you're on. Do you have anything you're recommended to be appointed to the Downtown Development Authority? And do you have any comments for the board before we move forward?
No, I'm just excited for the opportunity if I can.
Okay,
I've been working in the township for about 21 years. Was at Great Lakes Radio, then we switched over to Media Brew. So, you know, at there, I handle all the national advertising, and I've been working with our local public for, like I said, over 30 years in the advertising business, 21 with the current radio station. And, you know, any way I can help, I just like to do it.
okay, I guess, thank you for that information. I guess, does the board have any questions? Oh, Ernie?
We have 3 appointments here. Can we do it in one motion, all 3, or should we do it separately?
I'd rather do them separate.
Okay, that's fine.
Yep.
Randy, I know Bill serves also on the events committee. He's been helping with that. He's been very active and very helpful.
Okay, very good. All right, I guess I would look for a motion then to approve Bill Tabor to the
I'll make
DDA.
that motion to
Support.
DNN. No,
Or
DDA. yeah.
DDA.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, so we'll have a roll call vote. Trustee LaRue,
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson,
Yes.
Trustee Marks,
yes,
Trustee Winslow,
Yes,
Trustee Everson,
Yes,
and Clerk Rattari is yes. So motion carries 6-0 and 1 absent. So Bill, you're appointed to the DDA. We'll get you scheduled in to have it. You got to take an oath of office for that. We'll get you scheduled in the next couple of weeks to do that before the next meeting. And we'll be good to go. Thank
So it'll
you.
have to be
Well,
this week,
thank you so much.
thank you and welcome.
They got a meeting next.
next Monday.
Okay, well, we'll get you in sometime this week then, Bill. You got a meeting next week, I've been told, so.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your willingness to serve, so. Okay, so we have another appointment, Caleb Burzan to the Recreation Committee. And I know Supervisor Durant had talked to these folks before she recommended them, so no need for them to be present, I guess. We keep their applications out of the packet due to, confidential and private information in there. So that's why they're not in the packet, but I'm looking for a motion to appoint Caleb Burzan to the Recreation Committee.
I move,
Oh, Rogers,
I'm not sure if the supervisor in her absence mentioned that the bylaws of the Recreation Committee restrict the committee to 5 people and you have 1 vacancy.
oh, okay.
And she and I discussed just couple days ago that there's a potential solution to that, because if you've got people who are avidly willing and anxious to serve on a committee, especially like the Recreation Committee, maybe it doesn't make sense to be turning these people away. So I had suggested, this is not a statutory committee like the Planning Commission, for
Correct.
example, or the ZBA that gives some statutory requirements. The Township Board could change those bylaws to read not less than 5 nor more than 7 members, for example. And then keeping in mind the Recreation Committee doesn't have any authority to really enter into any kind of contracts. They are just advisory to the Township Board. They make recommendations, which the Township Board is then free to accept or reject. So unlike 6-member commissions that vote on expenditure of money and so forth, an even number would not be a significant legal detriment at all, because if they happen to be deadlocked, well, then the Township Board would take that into account, that even the Recreation Committee wasn't unanimous in making its recommendation. So that's a solution that I presented to the supervisor, and in her absence, I had expected she would explain that to the Township Board, and I had actually even forwarded some language for consideration, if the board wanted to do that as a consideration. But you probably ought to talk about that a little bit before appointing more people than you have vacancies.
So I guess recommendation would be is first you'd have to change the bylaws. So that would be a board action. And then after that is done, then if the 2 folks are still, I think they're interested, we could appoint them after that fact. So maybe we should just put these to the next agenda and then, work with them there, because we're gonna have to change the recreation bylaws anyway, so.
I agree.
Yeah, so why don't we just, so I'll make a motion.
Brandon, before you make that motion,
Yeah.
can we add road committee up to that?
We can.
Because we're having a hard time right now getting, and you can have 7, but you have to have 5. And in order to have a quorum, you'd have 3, Roger, or no?
No, if you have 7 members, your quorum would be 4. Likewise, if you have 6, it has to
All
be a
right,
majority.
that's right too, but I mean, it seems like over the last couple of years that we're coming and going, people want to come to Comfort Valley, drop off. And you want to have meetings, you don't want to go to a meeting and none of that forum, so.
Well, I guess that would be easy to do too, is change those bylaws, because again, that's not a statutory committee of the board.
It's the same as a rec, they don't have the authority to,
Expenditures.
Now, the Recreation Committee proposed language revisions, I'm looking at them, they're done.
Okay. Well, how about we do that for the road committee too?
I can do that
Yeah.
quickly and easily.
Because, we don't want to turn away any help.
no.
That's the
exactly.
last thing we would like to do, so. Okay, so I will make a motion that we put the 2 appointments for the Recreation Committee to the next agenda.
Support.
Support.
You're late, John, but we heard you. Okay, so roll call vote on putting these 2 appointments to the next agenda. As Clerk Retired, yes. Trustee Everson.
Yes.
Trustee LaRue.
Yes,
Trustee Winslow.
Yes.
Trustee Marks.
Yes.
And Treasurer Johnson.
Yes,
A motion carries 6-0 and 1 absent. Okay, so next up is draft committee reports, and we have road committee minutes of March 2nd. Peter White Public Library minutes of March 16th, 2021. Iron Ore Heritage Recreation Authority agenda for March 21st, 2021. Minutes of February 24th.
where's the guy?
And February balance sheet and resolution for the Michigan Trust Fund grant submittal for property acquisition of the 176 acres in Marquette and Congressional Townships. Resolution of support for the Michigan Trust Fund grant submittal for boardwalk development in Nagani in Nagani 2020 trail work list, and request for quotes on trail aggregate grading and culvert extension along with Irregular Heritage Trail, Republic Township. And I did get an email from Mike Springer that had some more information. I'm not able to put that up right now, but we have our library board member, Tom Bronken, and if he'd like to speak about what's going on with the library.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Good evening, everybody. I was at the March 16th meeting of the Peter White Library Board of Trustees, and the minutes should be in your packet and will be once a month now from this point forward. Randy, were you able to get those all right? They should be sent directly to you.
Yep, I got them and they are in the packet.
Okay, good. Let me know if that doesn't keep happening. The meeting was largely devoted to two topics. A presentation by Bruce McDonald on the library's information technology systems, and then they had a fairly long ongoing review of library policies. Regarding the IT activities, they have a fairly limited budget, but it seemed to be stretching it fairly effectively. One thing of note is that they have databases that individuals can't afford. So you can do things like ancestry searches or look for grants or access research journals and those sorts of things. But also because a fair number of people in Marquette and in Marquette Charter Township can't obtain broadband coverage either because they don't have coverage. We have about 90% potential coverage in the county, but some people can't afford broadband coverage as well. So those citizens will head to the library to download large files or to get their email or to access databases. And people without computers at home can even go there to get their email and then to print it out at the library. So when the library had to close back when the pandemic hit, that was a problem. But Bruce used his budget to install an antenna on the roof of the library, and he was able to put broadband internet into the parking lot just to the west of the library. And while it wasn't ideal, at least individuals that rely on the library for their internet services or some other databases could access them from their vehicles. So that's about all I have to say tonight. Anybody have questions for me?
Any questions, Mark? Okay, again, thank you, Tom, for providing those minutes, because that's really helpful for us seeing what's going on, at least at the board level. And then I know you guys meet quarterly for the Township Advisory Council, so.
Right, but most of the action takes place at the Board of Trustees level, so I try to attend those meetings.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you, and I guess we'll see you next month.
You will. Thank you.
Secretary,
Yeah.
the email that Mike Springer sent, I did reduce that PDF to a smaller size that I could share with the entire board, and we might even be able to get on the website. I'll try to remember to do that first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay, well, if you want to send that to the board, because I did look at it, and it was very informative about the Iron Orange Heritage Trail, and maybe next meeting, we can get maybe a PowerPoint on that, show the residents that.
That is basically what Mike Springer sent, was an updated PowerPoint of the Koski Trails property acquisition that they're going after. So there are some updates in there from what he presented last time.
Okay, and I think, like I said, maybe next meeting, we can put that on the agenda for a quick overview of that, so. Okay, so moving on to 9, policy discussion, consideration, and development. So first up is consider quote for water sewer upgrades related to the 2021 Ontario Phase 2 road project, and that's going to be Mr. Bodinas.
Yes, hello, everyone. So basically, this is going to be for what we just talked about a little bit ago, the Ontario Phase 2 project. Kind of back when we were applying for the MPS non-point source grant, that was some of the township we were able to, it was kind of related, some parts of it were related to that grant of the Ontario project. So as far as the township, for commitment from the township, we were able to, or it was talked about at that time, throwing some of this stuff in to meet our commitment. So basically, this is going to be when they do the project. we're gonna be going through and for like the manholes and stuff like that, for the risers for those, and for the different things that are gonna be redone on that, especially for the water and sewer part. The two big parts of that are a couple new hydrants. So whenever we get an opportunity to replace an old Traverse City hydrant, we're taking it. These hydrants are approaching 50 years old, some of them. So whenever everything's going to be dug up and we can get a new hydrant in there and some new parts, we're definitely going to do that. So that's basically what this is. And it's going to be some wastewater type things like manhole risers and self levelers and water valve boxes and a couple new hydrants there.
Trustee Marks.
I move to concur with the recommendation of the Superintendent of Public Works and approve the purchase of 2 East Jordan fire hydrants to be installed as part of the 2021 US 41 highway project at the low bid amount of $4,700.
John, back up one. You're ahead of the game right now. Back up one item.
Randy?
Yeah.
Ready to it?
Yeah, he actually was on the B.
Yeah.
And we're on A, so.
I'll approve the proposed purchase of water and sewer items related to the Ontario Phase 2 project for the lowest quote be provided by EJ USA in the amount of $7,774.46.
Support.
Okay, so I got a motion and support for 9A. We'll hold off on 9B, John, because we'll use your motion there. So any questions? We have a motion and a second on 9A. Treasurer Johnson.
I just have a question for Lenny. Those hydrants that you're replacing, is the one on Fair and Ontario, is the one replaced? The one that's in the ditch there that always have problems with snow and everything else in that?
I think the one on Fair in Ontario, I think that already is a newer one. I think that's in East Jordan. So we're looking at, there's 2 would be to the north on Ontario that we're looking at replacing.
Okay, because that one on Fair in Ontario, there's always
Kind of really close to the corner there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was replaced during the last project. It was kind of unfortunate, couldn't have been moved back a little bit, but that one was replaced.
Okay.
So we can look at that though, Ernie.
You know what I'm talking about
During
though.
construction, it may make sense to actually move it in the field. Keep in mind, some of the ditching out there is going to be enclosed with storm sewer. So that may require it, but we'll take a closer look before the project's done. And if we need to, we'll ask to have it moved.
That has been a problem for years.
Yeah, understood.
Linda had a question.
Yeah, is this already budgeted?
It is in the budget, but the recommended accounts that we are proposing are what I feel are the appropriate accounts, and that's the capital accounts, which are separate from the operating account. The net result will be the same in that we won't spend that portion of our operating account this year. So that money will go back into the reserve and replace the money that we're spending out of the capital funds.
So we need budget amendments?
No, we don't.
You're just moving money around.
Right, when we spend out of the capital reserve accounts.
It's the water and sewer capital reserve account?
Correct.
Okay, yeah, so that's clear to me then.
Yeah, and that's just a slightly different philosophy between former manager Gerard and myself.
Yeah.
He wanted to cover this under operating funds, and I believe it's a capital expenditure, so I would prefer to handle the expenses that way.
As a capital expenditure.
Correct.
Because anything over a certain amount of money is a capital expenditure.
Well,
Is that your
I think that
philosophy?
depends on each individual.
Right, so that's your philosophy.
It's my personal philosophy. I think it's a big enough expenditure. We should be,
Earmarking it as a capital expenditure.
well, we should capitalize it and then do the proper, wow, I'm drawing a blank here. The accounting,
Put it into your assets.
Well,
He's
yeah,
gonna annualize it down or however. the
Correct.
Term is.
depreciate it.
Depreciate
There
it,
you go.
correct.
It
Okay,
makes sense if there's something wrong there, to correct it now. Don't wait till something
Right.
happens and.
yeah, then you have to go back and it costs more time
Exactly. If
and.
they're there, you're digging it, fix it.
Okay, just so I understand it
Oh,
correctly.
we got that guy Newton. He always had that one law. So we figured if we put a new road in there, sure as heck, something's gonna happen. And if we could have fixed it before that, that would have been great.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting corner here in Ontario,
It's
interesting.
good to hear that, we're thinking ahead of time and we're planning ahead to take care of some of our problems, so. I'm glad.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Okay, any other questions for Superintendent Bodinas before we move? I take the roll call vote on this motion. Okay, so roll call is trustee Everson,
Yes.
treasurer Johnson,
Yes.
trustee Marks,
Yes,
trustee LaRue.
Yes,
Trustee Winslow
Yes,
and clerk Rattard, yes. So motion carries 6-0 and 1 absent. Okay, so we're up on letter B. Consider the purchase of 2 East Jordan hydrants to be installed in conjunction with the 2021 US 41 highway project. And trustee Marks did make the motion on this.
and I'll second.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I have a question.
Okay, treasurer Johnson has a question.
Whereabouts on the highway is this, Lenny, and that? Can you give us some-
There's one of the hydrants is going to be up where the old State Farm building, the Aaron Storm building was on the highway. And another one is going to be right near Culver's. So there are a couple older hydrants. And it's kind of going to be the same philosophy with them redoing the road. They were going to actually move those hydrants anyhow because the storm sewer was going to end up right where the hydrant was at. So they were going to move the hydrant. And we figured, well, if they're going to take everything apart, move the hydrant, we might as well put a new hydrant in there versus putting a 50-year-old hydrant back in.
Fine.
Okay,
Okay. That's how the capital account too?
Correct.
Yep.
okay, so if there's no other questions, we'll take the roll call, which is trustee Marks,
yes,
trustee LaRue.
Yes,
Trustee Winslow,
yes,
trustee Everson,
Yes.
treasurer Johnson.
Yes.
And clerk Rattard is yes, so motion carries 6-0 and 1 absent. Next item is a discussion item. Discuss manager goals and objectives through July, and subsections of those as a strategic planning, building internet and security, staff return, website redevelopment, and civic clerk launch, which I'll take care of when we get there. I guess I did not talk to the supervisor beforehand to see why she put this on here, but I guess if the board has any manager goals or objectives through July, I guess this is the time to discuss them.
I can give you a little bit of input on that as well, if it's okay. Supervisor Durant and I did have a conversation. It was shortly before I went on vacation, and I think what she was trying to do is help me manage the anticipated workload with all of the things that we've been discussing. We've got the website development and process. We have the civic clerk, facility upgrades, which some are now completed finally. And she just said, these are the things that she thought I should be focusing on. And it makes sense that the board be on the same page so that I'm not going down a path that the rest of you don't agree with. So that's really what this is on the agenda for.
so since,
Yeah, go
so
ahead.
since Lynn's not here, we can't really ask her why and what the process is and how's this gonna work, like strategic planning is part of budgeting, and are we gonna run things too close together here? Or is she wanting to skip strategic planning? I don't
No.
stall, what does stall mean?
It means put it on hold while we focus on the rest of these priorities that are already in the hopper to make sure we don't end up with too many balls in the air at the same time.
Okay, so we want to readjust the time frame?
That's my understanding, yes. So as we get through making sure the internet in this facility is functioning properly, knowing that when we reopen all of the building to the public, we don't have issues. I noticed we had unstable internet here again.
Yeah, but it's been much better than last meeting.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Yep, and that was what you felt was going to happen by meeting here, which is good. We still have a little bit of a question mark regarding public access to internet in the community room. I think that was part of the issue we had with the last meeting. 906 has been here and they've assured us that the signal is adequate. So we just have to make sure in the room next door, when somebody comes to use our facility and they need internet access, they have a Wi-Fi connection they can use that is not connected to our server. So
security.
all it is just internet access.
So this is just a discussion,
Yes,
is that
Correct.
correct? So at this point, without Lynn here, it's hard to know where we're going. So I guess my recommendation would be that we put this on the next agenda. Otherwise, we're gonna talk in circles.
Well,
And she could probably send a list of.
Yeah, because we don't even know what the goals and objectives are, and we don't have any timeframes or deadlines or.
well, and actually, goals and objectives, we're coming up, by September, we'll be evaluating the manager, so so basically, we'll be talking about those anyway coming up.
Well, and then we have those projects that we should be getting from the planning commission.
CIP.
Yeah, so I guess, in all fairness to everyone, we maybe should just wait till next meeting.
Well, there's a few items on here that we can talk about.
Right, things that are already accompanying.
Yeah, the manager's already addressed the building, internet and security, maybe the security part of it you can address, but.
Sure, has everyone received their fob that gives them access to the staff portion of the building?
So you just wave it at them.
It's the door right next to Andrew's desk, the wood door, or the south entrance door that has the old keypad on it.
Uh-huh.
We changed the code on the keypad,
Yeah.
and the only people that know the code on that keypad at this point are the clerk, the supervisor, and myself. And treasurer, that's right. I forgot that I had emailed that to.
And I deleted that right away. I looked at it.
Well, that was the first time it's been changed in my time here, so any former employee that is left with the old code can no longer access the building that way. And now you need to use the fob, or you need to be one of the few people that knows the code. The code is only still there as an emergency backup in the event our fob system fails.
Power outage or something.
Right, and we do have a generator for this building now too, so hopefully that will be a very rare circumstance.
It's done.
That one is done,
Okay,
until we figure out what the next phase of that project's going to be. And right now, I don't have any recommendations. We may determine over time the double doors right outside of this room coming from the street to turn into the waiting area by Andrew's desk, maybe the next one, but I don't know that there's any urgency on that yet.
so what did building internet mean? When I was reviewing some things, I saw that one of the strategic requests was to do something with the internet, to make it better.
So that's part of what I was discussing a little bit ago, in that, number one, we had the very disappointing internet stability in the room next door last meeting. We want to correct that issue. And I think 906 has assured us that we have adequate signal strength. We just need to make sure that whoever needs access to that signal strength will have it. And I can tell you, with the meeting we had, the private meeting we had here that we hosted a week ago with the legislators, they couldn't access the internet. So we had to give them one of our laptops to log in to their Zoom connection. And that's not what's supposed to happen. There should be a private version for our internal access, which will also allow us to connect to the server. And there should be the public version, which is only for internet access. It has no connection to the server whatsoever. And so we need to nail down that part, and Lenny's working on that with 906. I'm hoping we're gonna have that straightened out soon.
So who provides our internet? Charter?
It is,
PFN.
I think
Through
it's
Charter.
charter service through the Peninsula Fiber Network, so it's a fiber connection,
Mm-hmm,
which is the highest speed we can get,
mm-hmm.
but
Okay.
charter provides the service.
Because ours freezes often.
At home,
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
right over the hill. Mm-hmm, and it's charter.
Okay,
Unfortunately, that seems to be the case no matter who your provider is these days.
Sorry.
okay, so the managers provided security and internet updates. How about staff return? Any update on staff return?
As of right now, staff has been informed they need to be prepared mentally to return to work on April 19th, if I got the date right. In the office.
That's a Monday, right?
That is correct. It is a week from next Monday, today being the 6th. So that is the plan, unless for some reason we go backwards as far as directives from the state.
Okay,
If we don't go backwards, we're staying on that path to have all staff here. And I will be reiterating that to them hopefully tomorrow in our bi-weekly staff meeting.
and then I know you spoke about once staff is back, you have at least a 30-day grace period before public would be let back into the building. So,
And that means you will have two opportunities in that window to decide if we should do anything different regarding reopening the building to the public. So we'll try to make sure that we have that on the agenda for your consideration each time. We're in pretty good shape as far as protecting staff from exposure to the public. We finished the glass enclosure around Andrew's desk. If you haven't seen it, by all means, go take a look. We have to add one piece of temporary glass that hangs down over the sliding glass, so there's only a small opening at the bottom. Call it the sneeze guard. Otherwise, we're pretty good. I did sign up for the MyOSHA Ambassador program, but haven't heard from them. So if they actually intend to do any governmental units, I'm hoping we will be one of the first, at least in UP. That way they can come in and assess what our program is, whether or not we're meeting their expectations and giving employees a safe place to return to.
okay, good. I guess any questions from the board about staff return?
I think it'd be good. As long as we can do it safely.
And I think everyone knows the amount of space we have between each individual staff member in the working space over there is pretty good.
Yeah.
We have two members that don't have their own private office, one being Andra, and hers is almost private now. And the other being Brenda. She would be the only person left in the fishbowl, so to speak. So,
And when you go by Andrew, you should have a mask on.
right. Yep, we require wearing a mask in the common areas. Now, I will say, with only one or two of us in the office every day, I've gotten pretty lazy about it. So I might be the most impacted by everyone coming back. I'm gonna have to be on my best behavior.
I think you did a good job in there.
Okay, so how about website redevelopment, Mr. Manager?
We have training on our new website tomorrow afternoon. So Supervisor Durant, Clerk Rotari, Jason McCarthy, Lenny Bodinas, Rob and Dan at the fire department, all the people that we think will be required to do routine updates to their portions of the website will be getting training tomorrow afternoon. I have not seen the website in a while. That's the working website. They gave us a link to it, and the last time I looked at it was right before I went on vacation. And they had not really migrated a whole lot over to it yet. So in the week I was gone, they could have made a lot of progress. I just haven't had a chance to look at it.
Okay, any questions? Moving along. Civic clerk launch, I got an email from a gentleman today, and we're gonna have a meeting next Tuesday to kick off just an introductory meeting, get a timeline, and then start moving on that. So we're gonna get moving on that next week. So we're moving along here. So that's good.
I think the timing is great. They're both coming along almost simultaneously.
Okay, so down to, I guess, any questions on civic clerk launch? No. Okay, so 9D, consider directing planning commission to update blight code enforcement. And Jason's not on, so I suppose Mr. Manager will take care of this one. Well, or you can take care of that.
I can from the planning commission. We talked a little bit about this. Lynn was at our meeting, and I think Jason is already on top of it. I know he is sending the planning commission's draft blight ordinance. And we do not currently have a blight ordinance. We have another ordinance for junk cars and stuff,
Yeah.
but we felt a blight ordinance. I think we feel a blight ordinance will give us more, I don't know if authority is the right word, but it will certainly be more encompassing for what we consider blight. So the planning commission is on it. Actually, Jason McCarthy is on it. So
I think that's great, but I think if the planning commission hears that coming from the full board, it also gives it more teeth.
yeah, well, more credence for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah.
Who enforces it? Like order junk cars?
No, I don't know. I don't
It
know
would be
that.
the enforcement officer as designated in the ordinance.
Mhm. And I don't know who's enforced the one over all the time it's been there.
There's been various enforcement people, but it'll be named in the ordinance. Yeah.
Well, I hope we can get some teeth into it because we need something done.
One of the things that Supervisor Durant and I have discussed a little bit informally is we've seen other communities have great success using retired police officers as their enforcement officer for these types of ordinances. It's because they already know a lot of the law. And a lot of the customers that they will be visiting may already know that. Maybe by coincidence, it really depends on where their prior work employment history is, but I know it's worked well in other places I've worked, so something to consider. It would be a seasonal type of situation where you hire somebody for a few months to go after some of the biggest violators of whatever our ordinance ends up being, and help just whittle down the list.
Yeah, Ernie's first, what?
I think once we get that ordinance going and that, then I think the recommendation should come from the manager as to how to have personnel enforce it, and that if we go the direction he's saying, the recommendation should come from the manager that to the board that we want to move in that way and at that point in time.
And keep in mind, I'm sorry, along that line, we are advertising currently for Ryan Diedrichson's replacement. As we look at those candidates, assuming we get some, that might be one of the things we consider is, do they have prior enforcement experience that's worthwhile to us? So.
Okay, trustee Maroon.
I think it's very important, this ordinance to get going, is because we would need taxes in our community, and there are vacant lots around us in the township that if they're buildable, and we want to make sure we protect the people around the township so they want to come here and build something, invest in our community. So I think this thing is, there's certain areas in the township that it bothers me, so I think I'm good, I'm happy to see this, get ordinance get going.
Okay, I guess maybe should the board make a motion to direct the planning commission, just so it's in writing?
I'll
Would
make
someone
that
like to make that
I'll
motion?
make that motion.
I'll support it.
Okay, trustee LaRue and motion maker and trustee Everson is the second, and that'll be to direct the planning commission to update the blight code enforcement. So roll call, any other comments before we move forward on that motion?
So it won't really be update because we don't have one. It
Well,
will be to develop
Develop.
a
so it'll be, instead of update, it'll be develop.
blight ordinance, I guess, right?
That's what I said.
Yes,
Okay,
I knew that was right, Pete, yeah.
that's fine.
And I think one of the other things is, I think, is it called the county land bank? I think there's some money sometimes for removing blighted property.
There can be.
Yeah, so if
It's
that's how
gonna
it's
depend on
stated.
ownership though.
Yeah,
If it's privately owned, it can't happen. It has to come into public ownership before the funding is
Yeah.
available.
so, there's a few more opportunities if the ordinance is a blight ordinance. Jason will be able to give us the specifics.
Okay. Roll call is trustee LaRue,
Yes,
trustee Everson,
Yes.
trustee Marks,
yes,
trustee Winslow,
Yes,
treasurer Johnson,
Yes,
and clerk Rattari is yes, so motion carries 6-0 and 1 absent. Okay, we're down to public comment once again, and I will check to make sure we don't have any emails that came in. We do not. And we don't have anyone on the screen other than Superintendent Godinez. So we'll close public comment. And I guess, anyone have any announcements? Any announcements? My only comment would be is the civic, like I said, the civic clerk launch is, we're gonna start on that next week, so hopefully we'll get that rolling and start moving towards that. And website training tomorrow, so we're moving in that direction, which is good. Okay, so we'll close announcements, managers report.
You do not have a written report from me this week, and I apologize. I took my laptop with me on vacation, but didn't bring the charging port. Fired it up, went to fire it up the day I arrived in North Carolina, and it was dead. So you're gonna have to either accept that excuse or I'll take 10 lashes with a wet noodle. I guess the two most important things that you should be aware of that we've been working on here recently is we are advertising for the staff planner replacement. I think that is a very, very critical position within the organization. I think we have a couple more weeks on that advertisement. We're trying to give potential applicants about a month. And then hopefully we'll get a few worth interviewing. The second hiring that we're looking strongly at doing here very soon is filling that recreation position that was in the budget, but was very dependent on the millage being passed. And that did pass last November. So we have 2 years for sure to fund that position. We think that use of Lions Field is going to return to normal fairly quickly here because the schools want to use it for both of their softball teams. And that's going to require some additional help down there. And keep in mind, buildings and grounds and public works are both down one staff member from where we were when I came to the township. So we're down 2 members across that whole department now. This will help us fill a little bit of the staffing void that we're going to start feeling as we get into summer. And we're looking at taking the position that we partially filled, we filled part-time this winter and making it a full-time position. That employee has turned out to be a great great helper to the township, and I really think it would be foolish of us to let her go somewhere else. So
So does when the high school is looking at using the field, is there a charge for them to use the field?
I don't know that detail. They've been using it historically in the past. And I guess I would have to talk to Andrew exactly what we do there.
Interesting to know, just because some of the other fields within our community, there are charges to the organizations that
Yep.
use them.
That's-
It'd be
it's pretty
wonderful
common.
if we did not charge those children anywhere.
Treasurer Johnson?
When they first started, when Dennis was working with them at that point in time, there was some kind of dollar amount, or they're doing something to the fields, or doing something in supporting the fields. And I don't know if it was dollar amount or maintenance of the fields or what, back at that point. And I don't know if it's carried forward or not.
We have an agreement, a written agreement, now that I think about it. I just have not read what that agreement says. I'll try and take a look at that and get back to you.
I think the community would probably want to know about that.
Sure.
Yeah, and I believe I can give you a little history. I know Supervisor Lenata, when this came about, I think there was an agreement made that they would put certain amount of dollars into the field for like a 10-year commitment or something. And I know, I think I saw that somewhere on your desk, John. You probably just haven't looked at it yet with his other things, but between them and Little League, I think both of those have committed resources to fix that field and maintain it. So they basically get priority usage. In the high school and Little League really don't overlap, because high school is early and then Little League starts after that. So the user groups don't really conflict that much. So so I thought, and it was a good agreement at the time when we did make it, because they gave us some resources at that time that we didn't have available. And we got that field looking really nice over there, and it's still nice. So and I think I talked to the AD over there, and he said, he says, I just love your field, and hopefully we can use it this year. So. Treasurer Johnson.
Another subject on Lions Field opening up. I read something in the last 3 weeks, and I had a lot of time to read a lot of stuff, and that swings for individuals in wheelchairs. There's a certain type of swing in that. I don't know what it would cost, but it's like a great big swing, and they go in and just goes back and forth like this here and that. I can't even describe it. It's just, I wish I would have cut it out on the paper, but
It's probably a handicap.
it was for handicap and that, and
Does a wheelchair and everything go in it?
wheelchair goes in there. You get 2 wheelchairs, just like one on each side, and they just swing back and forth and that. So I'm sorry, I read that and it really made sense to me, and whatever reason I didn't cut it out. But it's something that maybe we can do some research and see if it's worthwhile, and maybe get some funds to do something like that. I would also suggest, if we get to that point, want to make sure we have cameras down there, so we don't have problems, people going in there and really messing it up in that too. Because it would be fantastic if we had something for the kids in the wheelchairs. They could actually swing and that, so.
Great idea.
Okay, any other questions for the manager?
John, do you want to say something about the garbage? Roll on?
Oh, the recycling carts. Did you get that one in the mail?
Yes,
All right, so everyone that's a township resident should have received their first postcard announcing that the recycling carts are coming, the end of the month. Late April. Everyone that is currently a garbage customer of the township, so you get charged on your utility bill for garbage, you will be getting a recycling cart. And we're strongly encouraging everyone to use it. If you refuse to accept it, we have to pay for it. If you take it, the grant money will cover the majority of the cost. So please at least accept it and try it out. If after using it for a while, you find out it doesn't work for you, then we'll just have to deal with that. But we want everyone to try them before rejecting them, so that we don't have to pay for it.
And then, so how are they gonna be dropped off?
So the company that we're ordering these from, Cascade, it's Cascade is the company, they're out of Grand Rapids. They hire a company that brings them up here, they stage probably out of our parking lot over here. And we give them the list of every customer. And every cart has a code on it. So they will assign a coded cart to every address. And when they deliver the cart to that address, they check it off the list. And we ordered a few more than we currently have customers, knowing that we will have growth in the future. And our plan is to at least cover the next few years so that every customer the township has will have this recycling cart, because we need to extend the life of the landfill. That's really a big push for this recycling.
Trustee Everson.
What do we do if the residents use them for, even though they say recyclable on them, use them for regular garbage?
If we find garbage in there, I'm assuming North Country Disposal will leave it.
Is that, I mean, we should probably make that agreement with them to leave it, or make sure that's what their plan is to leave it.
Yeah.
And in the future, someday down the road, I would certainly like to see these come up for garbage use also.
I agree.
Like they have, you know, in many bigger cities. There, to me, that's just the absolute best way to go for our residents. I know it's a grant. Hopefully we can get another grant to do, you know, the regular garbage in them, but I just wonder what if people did just put garbage in them because they're lazy, or they just don't know any better, or what's the plan?
Yeah, well, excuse me, I think we need to have that conversation with North Country and tell them that if it's garbage, don't take it.
Yeah, maybe get a sticky notes for them that they
Yeah.
put it on it, garbage in there, won't accept.
Yeah.
And
A
then
lot
the
of people are
resident-
under the understanding that they're gonna throw everything in one container.
Except glass.
So it's single stream recycling in one container,
Right, that's what I mean.
except glass.
Yeah,
Glass cannot go in the single stream because it contaminates the value of
Right.
the remaining product when it breaks. The glass shards get stuck in the cardboard fibers and the plastic. So it devalues the other products that are the most valuable at the market once they send it from the MRF to the market, so.
When the carts, this is Lenny, when the carts are gonna be dropped off, they're also gonna, each cart's gonna have an informational packet that's gonna be with the cart. And it's gonna have, we already do have our FAQs out. I think that's what was on the calendar. And then, so the FAQs are gonna be on the website, on Facebook, and then there will be an informational packet with each cart. And North Country, we've been talking about it. We're gonna try to get some like stuff printed off that if like garbage or something, you know, contaminants or something are thrown in the carts, they'll be able to kind of give like a little, you know, informational packet to that cart saying, hey, you know, we can't have this, or, you know, this is not the proper use of it. So, yeah, we'll have that kind of stuff to try to remind people if we do see things that aren't recyclable or garbage or something that's put in there.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for the manager? So don't be shocked when your recycle bin shows up later this month. Okay. All right, so we'll move on, review of motions, passed, and any assignments, if any. So the motion review is to assign the clerk as the chair of the meeting, that passed. Second one was to approve the consent agenda as amended. And there was a change in the last minutes. I'll do that. and it was approved. Third motion was to approve the regular agenda as amended, and the amended part was to strike 9CE, job description revamp with attorney, that was stricken, and that was approved. The fourth motion was to approve Bill Tabor to the DDA for a 4-year term ending 12/24. That was approved. Fifth motion was to put on the next agenda the 2 recreation appointments that were presented. That was approved. Sixth motion was to approve the water sewer upgrades related to the 2021 Ontario Phase 2 road project, and that was approved. The seventh motion was to approve the purchase of 2 East Jordan fire hydrants to be installed with the 2021 US Highway project, and that was approved. And the eighth motion was to direct the planning commission to develop a blank code enforcement, and that was approved. Items for future agenda, which I have, is the recreation and roads bylaws update and committee appointments and strategic plan with the supervisor. Not present, so you'll probably want to talk about that. And moving on to 11E is board member comment. Any board member comment?
I have.
Hey, trustee Lou.
I'm glad to see that we're taking advantage of when we were working on, say, example, like tonight, we're talking about the roads. And there's another problem there, and we're taking advantage of it and we're getting it done. It's not that we put the road in and all of a sudden we have a problem, we have to dig it up. So I'm very happy that they're pre-planning that in many cases. Thing I want to bring up now from the events committee is about coming up in April 23rd, 24th, and 25th is a home and garden builder show here at the Westwood Mall. We're going to have music on all 3 days. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So mark your calendars for April, let's say 23, 24, and 25 at the Westwood Mall. And then also on your calendar, mark June 19th, the car show, the Father's Day weekend, right here at the Westwood Mall again. So mark your calendars and come on down and see it.
Okay, thank you, trustee LaRue. Any other board member comment? Trustee Winslow.
I just want to remind everyone that tomorrow at North Country on the Nagani Road
By
is
the new
drop
power,
off.
where there are the power plants.
By the power plant. Yeah, that's drop off tomorrow from
Noon to
noon to
6.
7.
6 or
Noon
Noon to
7.
7.
Noon to 7. Okay, and you can also bring your glass recyclables at the same time. The other
Correct, and that
thing-
is the one time that you can bring it there for free as a township garbage
Yeah.
customer. If you bring it there any other time of the month, it's 10 cents per pound and there's a minimum charge on
Yeah.
that. So,
The other thing is the playground's getting busy. It's been nice out. So our playground, our Lions playground is busy and the bathrooms are still locked.
well,
So
we
just
have to
so people
evaluate
know.
that because opening public restrooms with COVID is another risk we have to analyze, so.
Yeah. Just so people know though that the bathrooms are locked.
Yeah, and even like with the user groups using the Lions Field, I'm not sure that the drinking fountain or the bathrooms will be available. Depends on what the regulations are at that time.
So people know.
Trustee Emerson.
Yeah, John, could we not have a porta power down there? Would that be acceptable with COVID? I know that down by the marina, their bathrooms are locked still, but they do have a porta power.
I think they do that every winter. It's certainly possible and it may be what we have to do this year.
Just so we have something there for the public.
Yeah.
Could you look into that?
Certainly.
Good idea.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Treasurer Johnson.
Following up on that comment, if we do put a portable one out there, we'll make sure we lock it up at night or have some way. Otherwise, you're gonna have other problems from that too, so. And that's.
I'm not even gonna go there. We don't need
The
any,
comment was made. now
no, we
it's
don't
not.
need any ideas with some little ones.
Yeah.
No, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
And in support of all that, the CDC is changing some of the guidelines, as I call it, that spraying poison everywhere to keep us safe. We'll start seeing a reduction in the use of disinfection.
If you can do a porta pot, can you actually not do a permanent facility and just add hand sanitizing?
Exactly.
That's exactly what they
that
do.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
So things to look at, right?
Hopefully, my OSHA will contact us about this ambassador program, and they'll be able to tell us what we need to do. Or Attorney Zappa will have a suggestion for us, or we'll come up with some other ideas.
Run it down to the end of the ball, end of the line.
Moving along.
Why did you ask the attorney?
You would think the porta potty would be more dangerous than open up the thing because they have hand washing.
I thought you were gonna say something else, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, if you look at it,
Yeah.
if you go inside, there's a faucet, there's toweling and stuff like that. I don't know.
More
Hand washing
sanitary
is the
first.
critical part.
Yep.
All right, getting off that subject.
Yeah.
One more motion of the evening. Treasurer Johnson.
Just one final comment. It's great to be able to get out here and come here and talk with people. You don't know what it's like to be confined to rooms and not talk to anybody.
Dan, glad to have you back.
Are you sure?
Yes.
But it's great to be back. And just being able to sit here and listen to people and that, and getting outside. That's 4.5 months. And it's a long time. And that.
Move to adjourn.
All
I'll
right,
make a motion, we adjourn.
all right. Actually, trustee Marks made the first motion,
Oh,
so.
we did? I didn't hear him. I tuned you right out, John. I'm sorry. I support.
Yeah, trustee Everson. So roll call vote on the adjournment. Trustee Marks,
Yes.
trustee Everson.
Yes.
Trustee LaRue.
Yes.
Trustee Winslow.
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson.
Yes.
And clerk attorney is yes, and we are adjourned
I
at
should have said no,
8:22 p.m. Okay, so we are
Oh,
adjourned. I will get the recording.
Well, the
Yeah, we're
planning
gonna have-
commission